Hey, what is up my fellow golf ball addicts? Welcome back to the channel, and we are doing a little comparison slash review today of the Titleist Pro V1X as well as the Titleist Pro V1. Let's dive right in. Okay, so first of all, this isn't like most Pro V1 reviews you're gonna see. I don't review this from a professional, a Tour Pro standard. I don't review it from a 100 mile, 115 mile an hour swing speed standard. This is reviewed from an average golfer perspective. I'm around a 9 handicap. I am at the high single digits. I only swing 92 mile an hour with a driver. My drive maybe goes 250 if I absolutely pure it and it goes great. This is what the average swing speed for a male in the world is 92. So one of the big things that I always set out to do on my channel was kind of prove, hey, what golf balls work really well for average swingers as well as fast swingers as well as slow swingers, because they are all different. A while back I did review the regular Pro V1 on the channel. It was met with, okay reviews, but again, it just didn't have the greatest performance with an average swing speed. It's meant more for the faster ones. But that's been a couple years ago, so I'm really excited now to go ahead and do the 2023 model. I know they're getting ready to come out with the 2024 model. I'll update that soon. But really the other reason I wanted to do this specific review is I haven't reviewed the Pro V1X at all on the channel, period. There's never been a review done of it, so I wanted to be able to review that one to get it on the channel, but also I wanted to compare it direct in line with the Pro V1 to see that if you are an average golfer and you're a Pro V1 loyalist and you have to use it, which one's actually going to be better for you. So let's start real quick with the design of the golf balls. Looking at these two golf balls, let's start with the Pro V1 first. I love what Titleist has done with their logo. It's a beautiful logo. It's classic. It's iconic. The cursive looks fantastic. It's so classy. Great font there on the number. Every Pro V1 is always going to feel premium, look premium. I mean, when you feel it, it just feels a little heavy. It feels almost like those credit cards, where they're a little heavier than your normal credit card, and you think, wow, that thing's classy. That thing's sophisticated. This is fancy. Kind of the same thing here with these golf balls. That's how they feel. That's the appearance they give, as they should when they come at a price point of $55 a dozen. That's really, really expensive. One of the things we do on this channel is value is very important. We always try to see if you can get the most bang for your buck, performance versus cost, and already the Pro V1 and the Pro V1X are going to get pretty much an F, D plus, somewhere in there for value, just because they are the most expensive tour ball on the market, especially in Walmart, in Dick's Sporting Goods, Golf Galaxy, PGA. It's pretty much going to be the most expensive line. Looking on the side here, as you can see, we have the Pro V1. I never like it when companies put that Pro V or their name of their golf ball in the alignment tool. It's just not my style. But as you can see, they're changing this style every single year. This one kind of looks like a pencil, essentially, a little pointy at the end. Not my favorite alignment tool, but again, it looks good. It looks clean. Coming over to the Pro V1X, the main difference is going to be it has a red number opposed to just the black number, so that's how you can tell the difference. Again, same alignment tool there with the Pro V1X on the side. Of course, the only difference being it says Pro V1X. Now the Pro V1X does have fewer dimples. You can see that the dimples are much bigger. This golf ball is a 4-piece opposed to a 3-piece like the Pro V1, and it's designed to essentially get more spin and get the ball up in the air a little bit more. So if you're a really fast swinger and everything's really low, it's designed to kind of get it up in the air a little bit. So without further ado, let's get to the chipping and putting green and let's see how we do around there. Okay, so after being around the green a little bit with the Pro V1X and the Pro V1, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed. I normally harp on Titleist a lot on my channel. I give them some grief, but they've done a lot of really good improvements here, especially since the last time I tested their golf ball. There's a couple things I noticed. The first one is both the X and the regular Pro V1 want to launch really low on chips. I mean really, really low on chips. Most of the time I'm testing 2-piece golf balls or beginner golf balls a lot of the time. And I'm used to a medium level launch. It launches up, I would say probably somewhere around my waist, or my knees, somewhere in there. These golf balls barely get above my ankles most of the time, and I mean, it depends. If you open the face a little, yeah, you can get them up there a little bit, but on regular just chips, if you're using it like a putting motion and you're just off the green, gosh, they want to launch low. But here's the benefit. They are super spinning. They are super grippy. The Pro V1 was actually the first one I hit, and I immediately thought, wow, that had a lot of grab to it. And then the X came right up afterward and said, hey, hold my beer, watch this. And I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of stopping power I got from it. It definitely holds true to what Titleist says. Now, as far as the feel, It feels really good. It feels really buttery. It feels awesome when you hit it perfect. And even if you mishit it, it's not as firm as it used to be. You know, a couple years ago when I tested the Pro V1, it was super firm. When you mishit it off the wedge at all, even off the toe, you felt it. It's not the case here. It just has that medium feel right in the middle. Now, it definitely is more toward that firmer side, as you can see on the bar there, than normal. But still, it's really buttery compared to what I have tested and seen in the past. So I got to give Titleist some credit there. They've done great. Now, as far as the putter with these golf balls, again, I gotta say I'm really impressed. They feel really buttery, really soft. I mean, really just almost like it just kisses off the putter. The ball has a very true 10 out of 10 roll. It feels great and it rolls great. And what I really like about it is, despite being a firmer golf ball, despite the X being a 4-piece golf ball, they have a lot of forgiveness packed into them. If I was hitting it off the toe with my putter, like let's say I just kind of maybe shifted a little too much and hit it a little off center, I got the same roll. Actually, the ball went in the hole a couple times. I don't usually see that except for on my 2-piece forgiving golf balls, the really soft ones, the Wilson Zips, you know, the cut red, stuff like that. I don't see it on tour balls a lot. All right, so as always, we're gonna go Pro V1 first, then Pro V1X. We'll go 9-iron, 7-iron, 5 hybrid, and then of course driver. And let's see what kind of numbers we get. All right, let's see how these numbers did. Now, real quick, I do want to talk about the feel of each golf ball just before I dive into this. To sum it up short, the Pro V1 actually does feel a lot softer than it did a couple years ago when I tested it. It does feel a little dead coming off the club, but we'll see how that goes. Now, as far as the actual feel, it's pretty nice, but it does feel a little dead. The Pro V1X actually had a lot more spring to it, a little bit more bouncy ball effect. Maybe it was that extra layer in there, but you could tell it was trying to add a little more spring off the club, which could work in our favor. It also could not work in our favor depending on our swing speed. So we'll see how that affects the numbers here in a second. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's do a direct comparison to comparison here, showing one and the other. I'm going to show the Pro V1 on the left. I'm going to show the Pro V1X on the right. And let's just take a look at these numbers here. We're going to start out with the 9-iron, of course. And yeah, so let's go through the Pro V1. Pro V1 was 89.7 on ball speed. That's the X, excuse me. And then we have 93.4 for the regular Pro V1. That's actually very impressive for the regular Pro V1. 123.8, 128.8. 122.9 for the Pro V, 116.6 on the carry, 21.1 on the Pro V1 carry, which was actually a little higher than the Pro V1X, which is interesting because the X is supposed to launch a little bit higher. So interesting there. So the X, it doesn't surprise me when you get into the firm golf balls. A lot of the time my short irons just don't compress them as much. I end up losing a little bit, which makes sense, which is what happened to the X there. But what's really weird is the Pro V1 actually performed pretty well there, which it usually hasn't for average swingers in the past. So those are really impressive numbers on the Pro V1 side. I mean, the 93.4 is well above average. You know, 128.8 on total distance is about 3 yards more than average. I mean, I love that. I love the launch angle. That's actually really good. So maybe Pro V1's actually got a really good shot to get a recommendation from me. We'll see. Going to the 7-iron. So the Pro V1 spun 5,873, which is actually really low compared to my average. And then if you look on the opposite side of that, the X did 7,085. So that is something Titleist said. The X is supposed to spin more. It did spin more around the green, if you remember as well. So that actually is right in par with what we have. But here's the big discrepancy. This is where it gets crazy. 107.2 with the Pro V1. Really compressed well, really good consistency. But unfortunately, that X model, it just did not come off the club very fast at all. I actually lost about 11 yards in difference, as you can see there, from the Pro V1 to the Pro V1X. And a lot of that had to do with the forgiveness of the golf ball as well. Miss hits for the X punished me extremely bad, whereas the Pro V1 was a lot more forgiving. But as you can see there, 12 yards basically lost on the carry, and launch was actually mid for the Pro V1 and 21.3. It actually did launch very, very high with the X model, which again is what it's supposed to do, and it spun a lot, which it's supposed to do. So those are actually two things that if I had a faster swing speed, it might be a little bit better, but because I don't, I think that X model is punishing me just a tad. So Now that we get into these hybrid numbers, hopefully this will favor the X a little bit because we're swinging a little faster. 3,780, again, lower than average there for the Pro V1, but extremely high for the Pro V1X. 115.4, which is kind of like just below average. 117.2 for the X, which is directly average. So not much distance there. And what's even crazier is if you look at the total distance of the two, you'll notice the Pro V1 actually goes farther because of its lack of spin compared to the X model, which is pretty crazy to think about actually, because that's a significant difference in ball speed. But here's the other big thing, a 15.3 launch for the Pro V1, which is already high, and then the Pro V1X took it to a whole nother level. That is by far the highest I've ever hit a hybrid. That's extremely high. It's really, I'm really beginning to think that this is going to be for like a 110-mile-an-hour swinger, because this is for guys who hit really low shots, and essentially the X model is going to help it get up in the air a little bit more for them, spin a little bit more for them, that kind of thing. Not going to do me or any average golfer a lot of good because we already hit the ball high anyway, so it's just going to end up ballooning in the air and just not getting enough speed. So I think I have my answer there. But before I do my final conclusion, let's of course look at the driver. Pro V1, 25.33 on the spin compared to 27.24. Really good there. And then as you can see, now it's flip-flopped. I got 8 yards more distance with the X because now that I'm actually swinging 92 mile an hour and compressing it fully, you can see that I'm actually getting pretty good numbers with the driver there. Now the Pro V1 wasn't bad. It was right in line with average, which again is better than I tested before. 135.7 compared to 137.1. Carry distance lost about 7 with the Pro V, and then actually the Pro V launched pretty low at 13.2, and then it was actually high 15.3 for the X. Now the other thing to remember about these numbers with the driver is I have lowered my driver loft to 9.5 from 10.5, so the 13.2 is probably more like a 13.8 if I tested it the way I used to at 10.5. And then, of course, with the X model, it did 15.3. That's more like a 16 almost, basically, if you average that out. So, yeah, so interesting numbers there. Before I get to my final thoughts, I do want to touch on the durability real quick. So I did, of course, the 40 shots with each ball, but I actually did something a little different as well. I went ahead and hit 10 wedge shots directly into the net with a 54-degree sand wedge. Just to see if it would hold up any better there as well. So as if you can look at these two golf balls, first the Pro V, looks brand new, no scuffs, no raised edges. I would still putt with this golf ball. It's really good. It's either a 5 out of 5 or it's darn close. Go into the Pro V1X, it's going to be the same thing. It's really good. I expect these golf balls to be good. They're expensive. They're in a high price point. I expect them to be a premium golf ball, and so far they've been holding up really well to that. Okay, so getting into my closing thoughts here. So this is a channel that has always been pretty hard on the Pro V1. I've always said that it's extremely overrated because people will die for it. I've always said that there's just this misconception that it's the most played ball because, it's the best ball by far, when really it's just money being paid. And then also, young golfers, beginner golfers, older golfers all think, oh, I need to use it, it's the best. But really, if you're swinging at a certain swing speed, it's not meant for you. So this channel's been about coming and kind of disproving or arguing, making a compelling argument against the case of the Pro V1. That's what it's been about. And we found a lot of golf balls in the $1 range, $1.50 range that perform really, really well for average swingers. But I have to give Titleist some credit here. I'm very hard on Titleist, like I said, not just even the Pro V, but just most of their golf balls. The Pro V1 model from this year, 2023, is really a joy to use for my swing speed. I really do enjoy it. It spins a lot. It has a lot of forgiveness. The durability holds up. The performance numbers are great. Like I said, it looks premium. It feels premium. You know what you're getting. There's a lot of bright spots. The spin around the green was phenomenal. Of course, we're still talking about the Pro V1, just regular model. It's really a great golf ball. It really is. Now, again, one of the biggest things in my channel is value. So does it do great on the value part? No, it doesn't, unfortunately, because there are golf balls that have tested similarly to how that Pro V1 tested, and they've been half the price. So if you're going to get that type of performance, it's always still better to get the better price, unless you're made of money. So does the Pro V1 get a recommendation from me? I mean, it does. If someone gifts them to you, if you find them on the course, which, let's be honest, it's really easy to find them on the course. It's the most played ball. You find them all over. It got to a point where I was having to give mine away because I just kept finding them on the course, and I wasn't losing them. So, I was just gaining more and more and more, and so it's like they're easy to come by. So, if you're someone who can get them in that sort of manner and use them that way, yeah, it's a really darn good golf ball. Now again, am I ever going to recommend anyone spend $60 a dozen after tax? No, I can't. That's kind of, it's the value thing. It goes back into the value, one of the big proponents of the channel. So, you know, that's kind of tough. I mean, well, but Nick, the golf ball performed really well. Right, but again, there's been golf balls that have performed just as well for a lot less of a price. And even if the durability is not as good, let's be honest, most intermediate beginner golfers are losing at least a couple of rounds. So then they don't want to end up losing a $4 golf ball. They'd much rather lose a $1 golf ball. It adds up quick. And then, of course, the X model. So here's the thing with the X. I think, again, it's a great golf ball. I think it does exactly what Titleist is saying it's trying to do. I like that. I like the fact that it's actually doing what the company says it's going to do. You'd be surprised how many times I see, you know, high ball flight, and then like it's the lowest launch flight that, you know, I check the numbers across the internet and everyone gets the low, like it's just frustrating. It's like, don't tell me your golf ball does something that it doesn't. Titleist does, it does everything Titleist says it does, which is really good. The problem is I don't think it's going to be for my swing speed. I don't think it's going to be for the average swing speed. I think it's definitely your advanced tour golfer ball. You have to hit the center every time. You have to be a pure iron striker. You have to hit the center of the driver every time, because on miss hits, that golf ball did punish me quite a bit, which is why some of the numbers were really low. I was losing 20, 30 yards on miss hits, and with a 7 iron, that's a lot. I mean, 120 versus 150 is a big deal. Most golf balls, I might lose 10. This one, a significant amount. Now, on the other end of that, if you pure one with the X model, it's fantastic. It goes super far and it just springs off the club, but it's got to be perfect, and there's a lot of play in between. So it makes it really hard if you're not someone who's just that advanced in the game yet. Both balls still looked premium, felt premium. They both had amazing durability. They both set out to do, I think, what they were designed to do. It's a really great design. So again, I have to give Titleist some credit here. It's hard eating crow after 3.5 years, but they have made their golf ball. They have done some alterations to it that have made it a lot better for an average swinger. When I tested it a couple of years ago, I mean, I just didn't get these numbers. I just didn't, period, you know. It felt harder. It felt clickier. It just feels a lot better now. It feels like they've kind of lightened some stuff up. And again, Titleist has had a lot of time to really, you know, tweak this golf ball in and out, and I'm glad they're making some changes to it, because I always got the impression that they weren't really making enough changes and they were letting other companies catch up, like the Chrome Soft, the TP5. But with these subtle changes, sometimes you don't see them, sometimes they're not written on the box, but you can feel them and you can see them and how they play. So good job, Titleist. All right, guys, as always, keep watching and keep saving and keep learning. Until next time.